What's good, y'all? It's your boy Neve Rashid coming back with another Top 5 Friday. I hope everybody enjoyed my episode from last week when I talked about my top 5 Marvel movies that I really enjoyed. So this week, I want to stay over there in the Marvel realm, but also Marvel and Sony. So this week, I'm doing my top 5 Spider-Man movies. Now, these are my top 5. Spider-Man has about 8 to 10 movies that I can think of right now, and I'm going to pick my top 5 out of those. So hopefully you guys stay with me, and hopefully you guys agree with my list. But if you don't, comment below what's in your top 5 list. So I just want to start it off with that, and shout out to all the Marvel movies. So let's begin. I'm going to start from the bottom up like I did last time. Number 5. My fifth favorite Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Far From Home. I like Spider-Man Far From Home. I really like Tom Holland as the new Spider-Man, but I just like how the movie portrayed itself. I like Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio as a villain. The type of villain, illusions. He's big on illusions and illusion tech. So I really enjoyed him as the villain and how he played both sides well as a good and evil person. I like both of those right there. So I enjoy that movie, and I love how Peter Parker showed his young age, as in, he don't, being a superhero is cool, but he really wants to enjoy being a kid, going on a school trip with his friends, telling the girl that he really likes that he likes her. So that whole dynamic and battling with being a Avenger, taking over for Tony Stark and learning how to protect the world as a young kid. He still is a high schooler. So I really like the dynamic of that movie. So my fifth favorite Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, moving on to number 4. My fourth favorite Spider-Man movie is the original Spider-Man, the first one. I like how they came out with the first Spider-Man. When they showed Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, he, like they see in Tom Holland Spider-Man, or you see in the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, they created the web technology. But in the Tobey Maguire one, the webs was coming literally out of his hand. So I really enjoyed that dynamic. I love how he interacted with his best friend. I love how he interacted with Mary Jane, all of that. I love their connection, and the depth of Uncle Ben and everything that happens in the movie. It goes full circle. He's happy, he's sad, he's angry. All of that is shown in the movie. And 2, I also like Green Goblin. Having your best friend's dad be the enemy of the movie is just great writing, in my opinion. And I really liked how the dynamic was torn between the two, and also with Harry finding out that his dad is the Green Goblin, but Spider-Man is the one that kills him. Him finding that out, I love that whole dynamic. And I just love the ending of the fight scene between Green Goblin and Spider-Man. So my number 4 favorite Spider-Man movie is the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire and Green Goblin as the villain. Now, let's move on to number 3. My third favorite Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Homecoming. I really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming. I like that they cast Tom Holland as the Spider-Man because he actually looked like the actual Spider-Man, and he actually sounds like the actual Spider-Man. Young, energetic, immature, really all of that is tied into one. And with Tom Holland, he portrays that so well. My honest opinion, I believe Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. Now, Tobey Maguire is the most iconic because that's the first one we were introduced to, and he did have decent movies. Andrew Garfield, he did a pretty good job as a Spider-Man, but yet he was still a little bit older. And I like the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one. The second one, not too much, but the first one I really did enjoy it. But Tom Holland, I feel like he embodies what Peter Parker and who Peter Parker is. So I really enjoyed that. Plus, having Michael Keaton as the Vulture, as the villain, was a great move. I really enjoyed him as the villain in the movie. The dynamic of him wanting this specific girl, but then he also finding his love for MJ. I love that dynamic. I love how Tony Stark plays a pivotal role in how the movie operates and how he mentors Peter Parker throughout the movie, and then eventually tries to create him as an Avenger, add him as an Avenger. So I really love that dynamic, and Tony Stark really doesn't show emotion to a lot of people, but he purposely picked Peter Parker for a reason, because he really believes he's the second coming of him and he's the good version of him. So I really love that dynamic, and just the Vulture versus Spider-Man, that was a great battle, especially when the Vulture figures out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and Spider-Man figures out that he is the Vulture. That dynamic is great. So I really enjoy that movie. So my third favorite Spider-Man movie is SpiderMan Homecoming. Now, moving into number 2. My second favorite Spider-Man movie is the animation Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That movie was a masterpiece. I really love the animation that goes into that movie. Miles Morales, we already knew about him in the comic books, TV shows of him becoming Spider-Man, but to actually see it on a movie screen, I really enjoyed that. And the multiple Spider-Mans throughout the universe, I really enjoyed that dynamic. And then finding out Kingpin, trying to defeat Kingpin. So Kingpin's trying to bring his family back, and you as Spider-Man have to fight him off and stop all that from happening, from crossing worlds, but also figuring out, do you really want to become Spider-Man? How do I become Spider-Man? How do I use these powers? All of that you're thinking about because you're a young kid. So that whole dynamic of that, and then him finding out all about all the other Spider-Man across the world, and then he using that to fuel him and to better himself so he become a better Spider-Man, that was great. Kingpin as a villain, and then him having his associates come and disrupt the whole Spider-Man family. I love that. And I just love how Miles overcame so many obstacles because of one promise. He promised the original Peter Parker in his time, I'm going to do what I can to save the world. He made that one promise. And within that one promise, the whole movie was developed, and he found a way to become the best Spider-Man he could be. So I really enjoyed that movie. And once again, the animation was great. Hopefully they come out with a live action one, but who knows? But my second favorite Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, let's go to number 1. My favorite Spider-Man movie of all time is Spider-Man II with Tobey Maguire. I really love this movie because the villain was the best. Dr. Ock as a villain, that was the way he portrayed the villain of Doc Ock. I really love that. I love how he was so mischievous and everything like that. I loved his demeanor, how he attacked Peter Parker, how he attacked other people. I really liked his villain ways. And then Peter really had to overcome a lot to defeat him. It took more than I thought it would for him to defeat Doc Ock. Then, of course, you're dealing with relationships, you're dealing with family, you're dealing with friends, you're dealing with all that. But at the same time, you had to take down this powerful villain. So I love the dynamic. I love the end fight. I love how everything was tied together in the movie. That movie, front to back, to me, is one of the best movies I ever seen as far as a comic book movie. And I just love how the villain was in that movie. And Tobey Maguire did a really good job as Spider-Man in movies. So I really did enjoy it. So, once again, that's my top 5 Spider-Man movies. And my number 1 is Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock. So, that's my top 5 list of my favorite Spider-Man movies. What's your top 5 list? Anybody disagree with my list? You change the orders or anything like that? Please comment and tell me your top 5 order. Please like, comment, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And you guys catch me next week with another top 5. See you guys again next week.
You feel me?